The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Why is Ken McElroy? I mean, we talked about the rents going up. Let's just use here in Phoenix as an example, because you know this market so well. Why is Ken McElroy not out there building like hundreds of starter homes? Or why is Ken McElroy not out there building from scratch like 10 or 20 apartment complexes as we speak to satisfy this increase in demand and therefore bring those prices back down?
Sure. Well, it's a great question. So we are trying to buy land. Everybody's in the game. It's like having a Monopoly game and we just doubled the players, right? So like everybody, everybody's trying to get the land. And so the land's going up and all that. And then at the end of the day, George, of course, it has to work financially. So, and what's very interesting, kind of back to the supply chain issue, let's say we use that same example where there's it costs this $50 million project. Right now, the subcontractors are saying, you know what, Ken, I don't think I can give you a solid bid and a cost on what it's going to cost to frame the project, because I don't know what my cost of lumber is going to be in 5 months, 6 months, 4 months.
Right.
And so you have what we used to be able to do is called GMPs, or gross maximum price contracts, which of course you all want. Like, we want to know what our costs are going to be as we build it, because we take that, we go to the bank and get the loan against it. So, so just like anything, you drop your plans, you get all your bids, you go to the bank and they lend against that. Well, now the electrical guy, the sheetrock guy, the lumber guy, the framer, the concrete guy, all those guys, all those companies are going, like, our costs just went up 20 or 30%. Mm-hmm. And so if we do this job for you, we're going to lose money. So there's all these contract issues happening right now between a general contractor, a subcontractor, of what the actual deliverable cost is going to be, because their labor is going up, their supplies are going up. And so those are all, that's a complicated answer to your question, which is why isn't everyone jumping out and doing this? Because the big uncertainty still today are construction costs and labor costs, because the pool of labor is actually shrinking and the cost to actually build something is going up as well. And at the end of the day, that all has to work its way out to a home price, right, or a rent price.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that rents are increasing dramatically, but they're not increasing fast enough to compensate for the increase in input costs to build more supply.
So that's yet to be seen, but yes. So we have both those things happening at once. So we don't know how far rents are going to grow, of course. And also that's not necessarily good for the resident themselves. And we also don't know until we know what the lumber costs are going to be, what the construction or what the concrete costs are going to be, and all those kinds of things until we know. So the first thing that's going to happen is we'll have pure certainty on what it costs to build something. That'll be first. And then after that, because we're committed, we're pregnant already. That's what we say. We're pregnant with this loan. We're pregnant with this deal. There's no turning back. You have to build it. So then at the end of the day, because we projected our rents at, let's say, something when we got the loan, right, we hope that they're going to be higher to cover the operating expenses. And so this is the double-edged sword that even the single family builder has. Yeah. So what they're doing is people will come in and they'll put a deposit down on a home, let's say, that is on the brochure at, say, $250 today on today's costs. But when the home's delivered in, say, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, it might be $300.
Right.
And the homeowner then can make the decision, and the home builder now doesn't have to absorb those costs. And so the home buyer has to decide, do I eat those or do I walk away? And the home builder is just selling it to the next person.
Yeah, the problem with that is, I'm sure you know, in those home builders that you're referring to, is they do have a significant amount of downside risk. It's
Y-
not zero.
Right.
If prices do go down in nominal terms, and they are left holding the bag, and that's a big bag
It is.
they're holding. So that's probably what creates even more hesitancy for them to create the additional supply needed in the future. It's all these, this kind of powder keg of increased cost, increased input costs, the unknowns of what they're going to see in the future with the overall market. I mean, they're not the only ones that realize that it's in a bubble,
That's
right?
right.
I mean,
Yep.
and also too, a lot of these guys like you lived through the GFC,
Yep.
so you're a little gun shy. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, I'm a lot gun
you
shy.
know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would be,
Yep.
I remember that. And it's not, you remember the fact that prices don't always go up for forever. And therefore you're a little more apprehensive than you would be. And then you combine that with the increased bureaucracy, the increased taxes, the unknowns of what's going to happen in the market, the global economy, what's going to happen with the pandemic, and then the increased input costs. And now to me, that makes a lot more sense why we're not seeing a lot of supply come in or come online.
Yeah. And there's two things. One is I always tell people, I'm like, if you're under 40, you just don't get it. Right. So it's funny when I have a conversation with somebody who's over 40 and has been through some cycles, they understand this. But if you really think about it, like if you're like, say you came into this market 10 years ago, you're like, I am the smartest person on the planet,
Right.
like things just keep going up and I am making so much money.
Well,
But
tell us your personal story, Kenny. Did you feel that way? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah,
did you feel that way in like 2004, 5, and 6?
oh my gosh. Like everyone, we had massive corrections. I have a lot of friends that lost everything in 2008, 9, 10, based on, it's like that, like musical chairs, that
Right.
last chair. And at some point, so that's why Robert Kiyosaki, our good friend, always says that, flipping, that's why he says the difference between cash flow versus capital gains. You could make really good money flipping and transacting, but at some point it stops. And let's don't forget, like when a home builder builds or an apartment guy builds, we have margin, George, but it's not like everybody thinks. We're paying everybody to build that, and maybe it's 20%. Well, if the supply chain shrinks that to zero, then the home builder is building that exact house for zero. And so that's
For
why
zero
they have
profit, just to be clear,
yes,
guys.
zero
So Kenny's
profit.
talking about
Sorry. Yep.
zero profit and potentially a
Yes.
loss. Yeah.
Yes. So that's why it's being passed to the homeowner, which then, of course, translates into a higher rent payment. Just the same with cars. Cars are more expensive. The car payment's more expensive. But the Fed used to be able to have that little interest rate to be able to go up and down and up and down and try to help people's monthly payments stay the same. They don't have that mechanism right now.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem we're facing.
Okay. So I think that there's a good chance that we're going to get price controls. And of course, that would include rent control. So how are you analyzing that unknown? I mean, and that
Actually
obviously
pretty
that
simple.
would,
Yeah. Well, we just pay attention to the policies of the individual state. So from my standpoint, we're investing in Texas. We're investing in Florida. We're investing in Arizona because, and not to be political here, but those are real issues. Like if you're gonna invest in New York right now, they still have the eviction moratorium in place. They've defunded the police, so you have safety issues. You have rent control there. So lenders, investors, all of those things go, okay, we're going to go over here instead, where, to this landlord friendly state. The lenders are going to go there. And so the money is now moving to where the policies were kind of, where they're equal, right? Because the Landlord Tenant Act protects the renter, period, and the landlord. That is the whole point of it. And so There are policies and laws in place, but they're being changed now. And as people start implementing things like rent controls or rent caps, then what's going to happen is, an investor is going to say, well, it's just like anything. It's like, it'd be like Apple saying, we're going to cap the price of a stock, like whenever you start to get involved, and don't forget the other side of that, which we haven't really talked about yet. Property taxes pay for all these other things. So, so a landlord actually pays property taxes, and those property taxes pay for schools and fire and police and a lot of the services for infrastructure and those kinds of things. We definitely are going to start to see those go up. So you have the property taxes are going to go up in these markets, and the rents are going to get capped. Why would you invest in those markets? Why would you invest in a market where those two things are happening at the same time? So where the smart money is going is it's going to governors that are being pro housing, pro building, and they understand what's happening. And but the biggest issue still is going to be rent growth, even with all of that.
Yeah, so you're hedging your downside with rent control by the specific market you choose to invest in.
Yes.